We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder, what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Hello. Hola. Guten Tag.
Okay. Yeah.
I
All the
don't know very
languages.
many languages. All of them, though. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. Today
Yes.
is November 6th, 2022. I'm your host. My name's Kenneth, and joining me today is Dave Warnock, whose memoir Childish Things is out now. Dave, how the heck are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Kenneth. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to be with you.
Likewise. Should we just dive in? We got the calls sort of piling up
Let's
over here.
do it. They're going
All
to
right.
pile up.
Let's start with Michael. Michael is in California and wants to talk about biblical prophecy. Michael, how can we help?
Oh, hello. Yes, how are you doing?
Doing all right.
Alrighty. What I wanted to talk about, I'm calling as a Christian, and I wanted to talk about a Bible verse,
Okay.
biblical prophecy. The verse is Revelation 16, verse 12.
Okay.
And in the verse, it's talking about the Euphrates River. That it says in Revelation 16, verse 12, it says that the Euphrates River will be completely dried up.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've been watching the news, but like it's already been dried up, and the Euphrates River is completely dried up. So
Yeah, Michael.
I just wanted to
so
get your comment on that.
What do
Yeah.
you think that proves?
Well, I believe that it proves that the Bible is true.
well, when you're evaluating the Bible verses and stuff, and you're reading them, what do you think about the word context? Do you think context is
the meaning.
important?
Yes.
Right? Like if it's like if I was saying that I was a prophet and I said something's going to happen and then something else is going to happen and then something else is going to happen, if the third thing seemed to be happening but the other stuff hadn't happened, would that matter to you in terms of assessing my merit as a prophet?
It probably would matter. Yes.
Right. What else does Revelation 16 say is going to happen before the Euphrates dries up?
If you don't know, I've got
Well,
a couple
it
of
talks
verses
about,
handy that we can look at. Do you know what the verses
Okay.
previous to verse 12 say? I'll give you a couple of them that should have happened before the Euphrates River dried up, if this indeed proves prophecy of God. In verse 3, the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. I was just in the sea a few months ago, swimming in the Pacific Ocean, and I saw a lot of living things in the sea. In fact, I played with an octopus there. He wasn't dead. Verse 4, the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood.
Yeah. So before
There's
the
water
river
being turned to blood.
Euphrates, before the river Euphrates dries up, yeah, the oceans and all of the rivers on Earth are supposed to turn into blood, and
Have you
everything
seen that
living in
happen?
the ocean is supposed to die. Did we miss that?
It has happened. It is happening in China. It's happening in India. It's happening. It's happening.
The ocean is turning to blood in China and India. What are you talking about?
Yes.
Where did you get this information? I've heard nothing of this. In fact, I was in the ocean myself, swimming in the Pacific Ocean, There was no ocean filled with blood. There were no creatures dying all around me. It was very vibrant and alive. So where are you getting your information, Michael?
Where do you think that verse is wrong, though?
Hold on, dude. Okay, look. And here's the thing, Michael. What we tried to do was we tried to do you a favor by teeing this up in such a way that it is obvious that this whole chapter in Revelation is nonsense. Okay, so the thing that you brought to the conversation is a river drying up. Okay, and
It has
but
dried up.
in the chapter, great. In the chapter, it says that all this other shit's supposed to happen first that obviously and definitely hasn't happened. And we brought this up so that you could go, oh yeah, none of that shit happened. So maybe there's some other explanation as to why a river may dry up.
Like global warming. Just a thought.
How would the Bible predict that accurately?
You know what the Bible could say? If the Bible was in the business of making accurate predictions, if the Bible was in fact a book that was divinely revealed by an all-knowing and all-powerful God, it could say, hey, you know what? It could articulate what greenhouse gases are. It could explain how global warming could happen. An all-powerful God would know how to do that. But instead of that, it says that the ocean's going to turn to blood, which has not happened anywhere.
You're saying that's happened, Michael? Where you said that rivers have turned to blood in China? Where?
Come on,
what?
man.
What? Where's your evidence for that? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Where is your evidence for the claim that rivers and oceans have turned to blood?
Not oceans, rivers, not
Okay.
oceans, rivers.
Where's a river of blood? Where on this earth?
Well, in China, they had a river that it turned completely blood red and killed all the living
my God!
creatures.
So
was it blood?
Right. Blood red is not the same as blood. And this is
Blood
so
red,
trivially easy. This is so easy for you to just be honest about what's happening here. You brought up a bullshit verse where Dave and I pointed out that there's a chronological order to these bowls of wrath being dumped out by angels in Revelation 16. And instead of you being honest about it, now you're doing the bullshit mental gymnastics thing. What are you doing?
Why do you want this prophecy to be true? Why is it so important to you, Michael? Why do you want this prophecy to be?
If that verse was incorrect?
Dude, the Bible's inaccurate from the Bible's inaccurate from the opening verses. From in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and the whole God saying magic words to speak everything into creation in 6 days. We know that did not happen. So we've got the beginning of the Bible is inaccurate, and we've got the end of the Bible here in Revelation telling a bunch of crazy ass stories that aren't coming true, that people have been saying it's the end times for the last 2,000 years, and it's never been. And in between, we've got just a parade of nonsense. So,
what about in the Bible where it says that there will be? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. What about in the Bible?
Thank you. Okay, in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, it says, it gives, when Jesus is confronted by his disciples, he says, they say to Jesus, what will be the signs of your coming and your return? And Jesus gives a list of things that are supposed to happen. So it says, rumors of war, pestilence, all these things have come in the same exact order as he said it. And it also talks about the Euphrates drying up. How is the Bible going to accurately depict and describe all these events happening in order, and they all happen completely like how the Bible says it?
Has there ever been a time in human history where there hasn't been war, rumors of war, pestilence, and rivers drying up? Ever?
Not the Euphrates River, no. It says specifically.
What did I just ask you?
Michael,
what did I just ask you? I asked you a direct yes or no question. Has there ever been a time in human history where there hasn't been war, rumors of war, pestilence, and rivers drying up?
Yes, there has been.
Oh, when was that?
okay, 1918, when World War I happens, it was the same time as the Spanish flu.
Okay.
I mean, yes.
So why didn't Jesus
But
come back then?
You're saying that what I
There have
asked you
been
about
wars
is
and
true.
wars and pestilence have been going on for years. Why hasn't Jesus come back?
And
He said,
Dave,
I'm going to come back when this happens. I've been hearing
Dave,
that from the 70s. I was a Christian in the 70s, and we were talking about the late great planet Earth, and it was going to happen any day now. And here we are 40 years later, 50 years later, and you guys are still claiming that because there are wars and rumors of wars and pestilence and storms and drying up rivers, that he's going to come. Now he's coming.
Yeah. And people have been doing it for 2,000 years. I mean, and in fact, in the Bible, I seem to remember Jesus saying to an assembled crowd of people something about how, like, some of you here won't pass away before I return. I feel like that was in there. What if you're just part of the latest batch of people saying it's the end times, using this sort of post hoc rationalization to interpret current events in a way that fits your narrative, only to be just as wrong as literally everyone else has been on this topic?
Okay. My question to you is, how could the Bible particularly accurately describe the drying of the Euphrates River and gold coming out of the river if it's not true?
Well, I don't have any reason to think that it did describe it accurately. It says in the Bible that an angel is going to pour out a bowl of wrath, and that the river is going to be it's going to be supernaturally dried up. That's not what's happened.
Yes. The
No.
river is dried up. The whole river.
Again, the book says that an angel is going to dump out a hot steaming bowl of wrath after a bunch of other angels dump out their bowls of wrath. And there's just this sort of wrath bukkake happening all over the earth. And then the angels cause the river to get dried up supernaturally. Is that what the scientists are telling you is the cause when they look at the data? Was it the angels and the wrath that dried up the river, or was it, I don't know, maybe drought conditions, global warming, something natural? Yeah. I'm honestly at this point not convinced this is even a real call, Michael. But I hope you have. Well, I mean, okay, yes, it is a real call. I meant that, more like, are you for real in what you're saying? Like the idea that there are no errors in the Bible.
There aren't any errors. I have not seen any errors in the Bible.
You've just not been looking, bro.
Yeah, maybe
they're everywhere. Like Kenneth said, starting from the first chapter in Genesis to the last chapter in Revelation, the book is replete with errors and contradictions, and you just see what you want to see. And you have a fetish for the Apocrypha, and you are excited about Jesus coming back. And I would ask yourself, why? You want to see wrath poured out on the earth, and you want to see the destruction that Revelation describes. You want to see, do you think Jesus is going to live? So you take pleasure in people being destroyed, human beings being cut down. Do you think Jesus is going to literally ride on a white horse with a sword coming out of his mouth? Do you think that's literally going to happen?
Yes.
You do. And there's going to be a battle between Satan and Jesus, and they're going to use swords in this age of.
It's a symbolic term. It's a symbolic term.
Oh, it's symbolic there.
Wait a minute. How do you know what's symbolic and what's not?
So you get to say it's symbolic now on that verse. Michael, I'm with Kenneth. This is just so many layers of bullshit, and you've just bought into this narrative, and you're not looking clearly at anything. If you say the Bible has no errors in it, no contradictions, I'm sorry, man. You're just not willing to look at what's true. Yeah. So I don't know how much more we can talk about this.
I think we're done. I'd say, Michael, go look at whether or not there's life in the ocean before you start making the claims about the prophetic river drying up wrath thing happening. But hey, on that note, let's talk a little bit about the ACA. Because the Atheist Experience is a product of the ACA, which is the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. If you like what you see here, if you like what we do, and you would like to support this incredible group of individuals and also myself, here are some of the ways to support the Atheist Experience and the ACA. You can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. Click that join button down there below the video, and this will give you access to special chat emojis. And you should know the Atheist Experience is just one of the shows put on by the ACA. Make sure to check out. Don't miss out on the other shows as well. Secular Sexuality on Thursdays starting at 7 Central Time. Truth Wanted, which is Friday nights at 7. And we have our Sunday shows, Talk Heathen at 1 o'clock Central, and the Nonprofits right before this show at 3 p.m. Central. Lastly, you can support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/Patreon AXP. Let's move on to Jay.
Let's talk to Jay.
Jay, all right. We're Jay talking. Jay, how are you?
Hi. I'm doing pretty
Hey,
good.
Jay.
So I wrote in and I found something in scientific literature that now just as a preface here, I'm not a theist, I'm atheist. And I always believe that anything or any claim should be, or any outstanding claim should have a lot of evidence and should hold up to scrutiny if it's prodded. And that's why I called in, because the specific thing that I found, are you aware of what the double slit experiment is?
Sure.
I am not.
So then I'll explain it for you, and I'll explain it for the audience too, and the best as I can. I have the article here as a reference point too, because I prefer to use the correct vernacular. So basically, there is an experiment in physics where you have two slits, and you shoot a concentrated beam of light, or it could be molecules too, through this slit. Now, if you were just to hold a light bulb up to this slit, it would cause an interference pattern that looks like basically a bunch of lines stacked on top of each other through the other end of the slit. So when you shoot a concentrated beam and a laser through this, basically there is behind this wall, which contains the slits, there is, I don't know what the correct term, but imagine it imprints where the light from this laser lands, and you could see basically the exact position where this light lands. So when you're using this laser, you get that same interference pattern where there's several rows of lines that are lined up on the back side of it. Now, however, the problem comes in, and I wouldn't say the problem, but the interesting part of this experiment starts to show
Is the observer effect.
The scientist is the observer, correct, where they put a detection device at the slit, and they measure exactly where these photons of light are entering. So either on the right side slit or the left side, and they measure where these photons are entering and exiting, so they know where these specific light particles are going. Now, what is interesting is that when you do this, and when you place a detector there, all of a sudden the light changes its mind, and it decides, no, now we're going to reflect just the two slits, and that interference pattern disappears, and only
it doesn't change its mind. Hang on. It doesn't change its mind, and this is where I'm worried we're going to get off the rails here, because look, I'm not a physicist. I don't know if you're a physicist. Dave's not a physicist, and as far as I know, we don't really understand what causes what's described as the observer effect. So when something happens in the world of physics, and especially when we're looking at things on like a very, very, very small, some might even say quantum level, there's a lot of spooky stuff that happens that we don't fully understand. So it sounds to me like you're going to run up to, here's something that we observe that this is weird, we don't really understand what's going on here, and then jump to a conclusion from there. You're not going to do that, are you?
No, I'm not. And also, I wanted to bring up that point too, because this could be interpreted as, like there's Schrodinger's cat, right? Which is the thought experiment where in physics, specifically with things that are super, super small on that macro scale, where you can't really know the alternate state of something unless you measure one thing. So for example, with time and energy, if you were to measure the energy state of a particular particle, the more accurate you get with that specific state of energy, the less accurate you're going to be with the actual time that you measured it. And the inverse is also true. So the more accurate time that you measure that specific particle for its energy state, the less accurate the actual energy will be.
Again, so we've got a bunch of non-physicists talking about physics. So what I'm wondering is, what is the conclusion that we're meant to draw from all this stuff?
Yeah, I guess that's my question.
Okay,
You're
so
in the queue. It said you have
in-
scientific. Hang on. Jay, slow down, buddy. Slow down. In the queue, it says you have scientific evidence of something else, in quotes, existing other than God. What do you think that something else is? Let's cut to the chase here.
Well, I have one more part of the experiment that explains.
No,
why
I think we're on a side road here. Yeah, let's just cut to the chase. What is that something else?
Okay, that something else is the fact that conscious observation has a direct effect on the fundamental particles of our universe. Now, I know what you're going to say. That's a leap in logic, because you just can't say that because you observe that. But the reason I'm bringing up Schrodinger's cat and all that is because they don't fire these photons all at once. They fire them individually. And because they're firing these photons individually through the slits, that means that these photons are predeterminately hitting. So, depending on if the measuring device is there, they're predeterminately going to that destination.
What's the
part that is really
Jay. What is the point?
And that means that, and the point is that your conscious observation or the measurement of these particles has a direct impact on how they behave. And I think that the implications of that are huge. I'm not saying that it points to, I can't tell you exactly if it points to some other entity or anything, because I frankly don't know. But what I can say is that it implies that our conscious observation has a direct impact on the universe around us.
How do you know it implies that? Wait. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you very straightforwardly, are you a particle physicist? Do you have some expertise in this area?
I'm not a particle physicist myself, but I've been studying physics. I'm just a student, so.
Okay. I'm just wondering, at what point does one become sort of qualified to talk about the implications of something they don't fully understand?
Well, I mean, to a certain degree, none of us will fully understand anything.
That's not even remotely an answer to what I asked you.
Well, okay, but at what point? I'm not certain. I can't answer that question. I wouldn't know at what point I'd be qualified to fully understand the scale of what I'm talking about. But that's just because the nature of how new this, or how, what's the right words for it? Because physics is very dynamic. How we understand physics is always changing.
We're learning new stuff all the time, right? Yeah, and when I say we, I don't mean us, because none of us are physicists. But the people who actually are doing the work, yes, they're discovering new things all the time. But what I'm sort of drawing attention to here isn't so much an issue about physics and more of an issue about psychology and how there's a temptation for people to confidently,
well,
make
I
claims
guess
about the implications of things they don't fully understand.
My question, the problem I have with conversations like this is because my immediate reaction to this is, so what? I'm a pretty simple guy. Maybe I'm not smart like you guys, but if there were implications of something else existing other than God, my question is, Jay, so what? What does that have to do with us here having this conversation, living in this world we know we have, living the lives that we all live? What if there is something out? There's certainly no evidence of anything out there or in there doing anything having to do with the affairs of man on a daily basis. So
I totally agree with you.
I think we're running in circles. Wait. We're kind of spinning in circles, postulating on these possibilities because we've observed something that we don't quite understand, and it could have implications of something that could be big. But in my view, what difference does it make in terms of what we're living with today? So I don't get these kind of conversations, honestly.
Well, I called in because I wanted to see if I was being illogical at any step there, because I wanted to see if it held up to scrutiny, at least my observation of it. But I could also be Dunning-Krugered. I could just not know enough about it.
And I think we could
not
all
know
admit
about the
that.
actual
Yeah.
physics itself, you know. So
I think when you start talking about using words like evidence or proof of something else, then I think we're overreaching. Because there may be some stuff we don't understand that looks pretty interesting, but when you jump from that to proof or evidence, that's a leap too far for me.
I think I should have written more clearly. Rather, it's not evidence; it's more the evidence implies. I think that's better terminology.
That's fair enough.
The evidence implies. Yeah, it's not evidence, because I don't think you could fully prove anything 100%. But yeah, I just wanted to call in and get your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I would, I'm not going to, like, it's very difficult for me to not get dragged into discussions about the nature of evidence, but I would say talk to some physicists about it, since the nature of what you're talking about is rooted in physics. And rather than calling to talk to, Dave and me, who are, again, not physicists, but
obviously not qualified.
Me analyzing this experiment, I'm talking philosophy now. Philosophically speaking, if the universe does consciously react to your observation, that could mean so many different things.
I don't think the universe, I don't think anything, and again, non-physicist here, I don't think that the observer effect thing is a conscious reaction to experience. I think it's about electrons and photons. But again, I'm not going to keep going in circles. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We're gonna move on.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling, Jay. We got more people calling in. Let's go with Drew here. Wants to talk about the Bible and what in the Bible is true. I understand, Drew.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
Hey, Drew.
Doing great.
Good. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail and have a very, very long conversation, but just in general, if you look at, so we know the Bible isn't one book, it's 66, right? Separate things written by, they say, about 40 different people, 40 different authors. And I'm not going to go into detail again, but and we know it was written over thousands of years. And we have, the evidence is the actual, papyrus and the old scripts that we found, the collection of all of these things that were written over this long period of time. And it's the story of the Jewish people, a part of it, and most of it is the story of the Jewish people, God creating everything, going through all this time, things that happened throughout what we call the Old Testament, all the older writings. The law that was given by God, Moses, gave it to the people. They followed the law. Again, still following it. A lot of Jewish people still follow that and base their truth and everything on that. So what I'm getting at is this is not just a claim, but we have evidence of the writings of that claim. And it starts off being follow the law. And then it also talks about this guy who's coming, this Messiah, and he comes according to what's written in the New Testament, and he fulfills everything that was written about him according to these old writings. And people still don't get it. Like they think, no, we need to follow the law. That's what God wants. Who's this guy? So a lot of Jewish people rejected him, but Paul, who was a Jew and was a law follower and a Pharisee to some sorts, and who had an education, he was very, respected in his life. And we know he's
Drew.
Wait, real quick
Drew,
though.
Drew.
Yeah.
Drew. No, real quick on my end. You're just giving us a Cliff's Notes sort of summarization of what the Bible is. Many of us have read the Bible. So what's the point?
Okay, well, get to it.
I'm going to get to it right now. So Paul followed the law, but all of a sudden, this guy changed everything and said, no, it's not about the law. It's about this Jesus, this Messiah. He's the fulfillment of all of this. Like everything that happened, the Passover.
Okay, you're still talking about what the Bible says. What is your point
Paul-
of your call?
I know.
Paul became a Christian.
Okay,
So
we
what?
know all that. We
This is
know
my
all that.
point.
Please.
Okay. So my point is, is it reasonable to think that all of these people, different people through thousands of years wrote all of these things down? They all are harmonious, and then it becomes something different, but yet it's revealed by Peter and Paul and Stephen in the New Testament when they're writing to the churches, and they're writing to the people, and speaking to the Jewish people and explaining. So this is what I'm saying.
Drew,
is it reasonable
no,
to believe?
Stop. Drew,
is it reasonable?
stop.
Yes, go ahead.
You're not just
Go ahead.
get the question out. We have limited time and more callers. Show some consideration
the
for all these
question
other
right now.
people. What is your
I'm
point?
saying the question right now.
Thank you.
This is my point. It's my point. Here's my point. Is it reasonable to believe that all of these different people wrote all of these things? Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Hello? Okay.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I'm getting yeah. So is it reasonable to believe that they all wrote these different things, and then it was revealed as far as the revelation of it all by these other people, and it all works and fits perfectly that we're
What
saved by
was
faith
revealed?
in Christ?
Yeah, what was revealed?
Drew, what was revealed? You mostly word salad. What was revealed? What?
What was revealed is the examples and the foreshadows and all of the things that happened in history that were written down in the Old Testament were all pointing to the revelation of faith in Christ. So
okay, great. So we've got to right. Yeah. So we've got now we've got. I've muted you because, like, Jesus, I got to show some respect to our audience and the other callers. So the question seems to be, we've got a bunch of old writings about what the Messiah is going to be like, and then we've got some new writings where the writers were like, "Hey, all that shit that they said about the Messiah, yeah, Jesus did all that stuff." So we've got the older writings, and then the newer writings. Is your question, how could people write stories to make it fit with the old writings? Is that what you're asking?
Well, is it reasonable to believe that these people made it all up? They made it all up. All these different people made up all this stuff. Is it reasonable and logical to believe that they all made all this up and made it all fit together? And it was like a surprise. It's not the law. You don't follow the law. You don't need to be good. You have to put your faith in this guy, this
Cool.
Messiah.
I'm not gonna let you ramble again. So I've muted you again. So here's the deal. It sounds like you might not understand how this concept called burden of proof works. Okay. So like, obviously people can write stories to make them match up with older stories. If you've never heard of this before, I'd urge you to Google this thing called a sequel, where there's like movies that come after earlier movies, but that sort of continue the timeline of the earlier movies. So like in Harry Potter #1, they can be like, hey, this is a special kid. He's going to defeat Voldemort. And then all the way in movie #8, Harry Potter can defeat Voldemort. And they can write it so that happens. Easy. It happens all the time. But we need to return to this idea of burden of proof, because if you're going to make the claim that any particular thing in the Bible is true, or that it points to God, the burden is on you to demonstrate that that is true, or that it points to God. So we can talk about whether the Bible's true and whether the Bible points to God. This issue of whether people could write something to match up with earlier writing is trivial. It's obviously, yes, anybody could do that.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't match up. It was completely changed and revealed in a different way. It doesn't match up to the old writings. You get it? That's the difference. That's what I'm saying, is it doesn't match up to the old writings like, oh yeah, here it is. This lines up. It doesn't. It's all of a sudden, wait a minute. It lines up in this completely and totally different.
Are you talking about the move from being under the law to being under grace? Is that what you're talking about? That shift between old covenant and new covenant?
Yes. Yes.
What's
All of a
that?
sudden,
What's that
Paul
supposed to
went
prove?
from a law.
What's that
What-
supposed to prove?
It
Yeah,
proves
What is
that,
it meant to prove?
it proves that it's not reasonable to believe that people made this up, all this old stuff, and then they
No, it
twisted it and changed it and made it grace and faith. But it
No,
all
it doesn't.
fits. Like
No, it doesn't.
reasonably.
No, it doesn't.
Why not?
I'm
Why
muting you
not?
again. Okay, so again, just to return to this idea of sequels. In the old Star Wars movies, all right, there's this idea of the Force being this like mysterious thing that moves in all creatures, right? And then they came out like 20 years later, they come out with the Phantom Menace and they introduce the concept of midichlorians. Now, someone's Force use has to do with something that's in their blood, and they change the story a little bit. They're telling a slightly different story. Anybody can do this. This is trivial. This doesn't prove jack shit. So if the idea is that the Messiah is going to come, okay, and Jesus being this messianic figure who's going to set everybody free from the law, and now you're under grace. Well, like what is that supposed to prove? Honestly, what is that supposed to prove?
Well, it wasn't changed a little bit. It was completely reversed.
So
And there are still
So
people.
what?
There are
What
still
does that
people
prove?
following the law.
what
Anybody
does
can
this
write a
prove
story.
to you?
What? Yeah.
What does
Anybody
it
can write a story,
prove?
man.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does it prove?
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. So what I'm saying, this is what I'm saying. I'll conclude with this. For a
Okay.
Christian who believes, it's
Uh-huh.
reasonable for that person to look at all of the information, all of the old writings, and the Bible as a whole, and reason and logically conclude that, okay, this makes sense to me. I know that I've done bad things, and I know that I need to be forgiven, and so I believe all of this, and I'm going to accept it. And for the non-believer, it's not reasonable. They look at it as stories and things and that, and it's all made up. But the conclusion is a believer looks at it reasonably, and they believe it because they conclude that
And we can test this.
very
Let's test this.
difficult.
We
It would be
can test this.
difficult
It's just
for men
so
to
easy. Hey, what did Paul say was the most important claim in all of Christianity? What did Paul say was it? Since you brought up Paul and the whole idea of going from under law to under grace, we find that in Romans. But Paul said there was one thing, one central claim to Christianity that if it didn't happen, the whole faith is in
Right.
vain. What was that?
The resurrection of Christ.
Right. Did that happen? Since you're being reasonable, let's talk about it. Did that happen? Oh, how do you know that happened?
Yes, it did.
How do you know?
Great. Yeah, how do you know?
Well, it says 500. It says 500 people saw him after he was resurrected,
It does say that.
including the disciples.
It does say
Yes.
that. Is that true?
Yes.
That happened? How do you know
I
that?
believe it is. I believe it is because the
No,
disciples
we're not
wrote about it.
Right,
That they saw
but
him.
we're not talking about just reading
wrote
something in a
about it.
book and just believing it. We're talking about being reasonable. So we got a book that says 500 people saw the risen Jesus. Did it happen?
Right. Well, I believe that they believed it enough to die for it. So
Did
they
it happen?
saw him,
Is the question.
they
That's
went to-
irrelevant.
Did 500 people see
when
the
he got-
risen Jesus?
well-
Is the question.
I believe that's true. When Jesus got
Great.
killed, they left and went fishing.
Why?
Done.
Why
They
do
left
you
Jesus.
believe?
They were like,
What is
"Is he
the
done?"
evidence?
he
What
got
is the
killed.
evidence? What is
Drew.
the evidence that 500 people saw the risen Jesus?
Them not being fishermen anymore, but going back to preach and teach about Jesus.
How do you know that's what happened?
That's not what I asked you.
By the
That's
Romans.
not what I asked you. You said there's 500 people who saw the risen Jesus, and to be fair, it's not you saying that. It's the Bible says that. But how do you know that actually happened? Is the question I'm asking you.
Because history tells us, and we know this is true, that the Roman government and the soldiers tortured and killed and murdered Christian people who spoke about Jesus.
This is
We're trying to
completely
spread the
irrelevant. History doesn't tell us anything
It's a
about the
fact.
500. So I'm asking you, a book says 500 people saw the risen Jesus. What is the evidence of that? Just that.
Well, just that. When you look at
Uh-huh.
it just as one single individual thing, then it's difficult to prove that because it happened so long ago, right?
It is.
But when-
There's
That's
no
the
reason to
problem.
believe it.
So I understand.
There's no evidence.
If you take
There's zero evidence for the 500. It's just a story in a book, right?
Right. The evidence, though, is all of the writings before it happened. That is the evidence.
No, those are the
upcoming-
claims.
The pointing
So
to
again,
it.
we're So we're just talking about the resurrection of Jesus and
Well,
whether it happened.
we have to-
So you brought up one thing. You brought up, oh, he was seen by 500 people. Well, we've established that that's a claim in a book that we have no evidence for. So that is an evidence of shit with respect to the resurrection. What's the evidence that Jesus resurrected?
all of the physical evidence of the writings that we have before it happened, up to it, pointing to it, talking about it.
We have
revealing
writings
it,
about
and
all kinds of
afterwards-
stuff. Anybody can write anything.
And the writings
I'm asking you what the okay, great. So writings afterwards. What writings do we have afterwards that deal with the legitimacy of the claim that Jesus resurrected?
We have all the letters that Paul wrote to the churches that he signed.
Drew,
So Paul was a real guy.
Drew. Do you believe Harry Potter existed and flew on a broom or whatever the hell he did?
No,
Do you believe
because
he's a-
that was one author making up a story. This is
It was
four
written in a
different
book.
people
It
writing
was written in a
history.
book. It was
Did
written in a
Paul-
book.
One author who made it up.
Yeah. Did
By one author.
Paul meet the resurrected Jesus?
According to the story, he did, yes.
No, he didn't.
He was knocked off his horse. Yes, he did.
He heard a
No,
He
voice.
had a
Source was
vision.
blinded.
He had a vision of the resurrected Jesus on the road to Damascus. He didn't like
Jesus
meet a
spoke
guy.
directly to
He
him
had
and said, "Why are you
that's
persecuting?"
the story. Again, that's the story. But anybody can make up a story about
Right.
anything. So
Yeah,
I'll for
so
the
he
sake
wrote
of
about
for the
it,
sake
though.
of for the sake of
he
charity to
make up-
Paul, for the sake of charity to Paul, I'm about to deal with what you're going to ask me. I'll say I think we've got pretty good reason to believe that Paul believed that he saw this vision of the risen Jesus and that it was sufficient to change his life. Okay, the guy he became a Christian, right?
What if he was on shrooms when he had that vision though?
Right. People
I mean-
have all kinds of experiences. I've talked to people who say they've seen Bigfoot and been abducted by aliens. People who say they have psychic powers and have ghosts in their house. People can experience all kinds of stuff.
Drew, you keep talking about what's reasonable, and it's not reasonable to believe that a human being rose from the dead, whether it's Jesus Christ or Lazarus or anyone else. That is not a reasonable thing to think because that's not logically possible.
Okay, so let me address what you just said, please. So Paul, in his mind, if he all of a sudden thought that he had a vision and it wasn't true and real, then he got this wisdom he got this knowledge and wisdom about all of the Old Testament writings and all the history of the people leading up to that point, to his life and things that
Oh,
were
he was a
happening in
Pharisee.
that day
He
and the Messiah.
He probably knew the
He
he
all of
probably
a
knew the
sudden-
Old
oh, wait.
Testament.
He didn't
Better
have
than Jesus
wisdom. He
did.
just read the books.
Yeah,
He
Can
just
I
read
finish my
them.
sentence? No, but
Yeah, go
I
for it.
guess.
all of a sudden this wisdom came to him and he changed everything and said, "Look, guys, this is what it means." He changed because Christ said, "Why are you persecuting me? Why are you
Yeah.
killing my people,
Okay.
my representatives?" And he said, "Well, right. So listen, where did that wisdom come from? That did he make that up? He made all that up
Well-
after the fact and just said, "You know what? I'm wrong 100%. This is what it is."
There's
And he
nothing.
just
there's
came up
no-
with that.
I'm gonna answer your question and end the call on this.
Yeah,
There is nothing in the writing of Paul that is indicative of any kind of like supernatural wisdom or even any wisdom that wouldn't have been sort of par for the course for a dude at that time. Okay. I mean, when you want to talk about the wisdom of Paul, does that include stuff like, wives obey your husbands and, slaves submit to your masters as under the Lord? I mean, there's a lot of pretty toxic garbage that you can find in the writing of Paul where you can read it and be like, oh, this is a guy from, 2000 years ago. Yeah, this makes sense. This is a religious zealot from 2000 years ago. Of course he's going to write this stuff. It's not wisdom. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, Dave. I'm on.
No,
one today.
that's good. Yeah, I think we can move on. Drew, I can see you're excited about the Bible, and good luck to you, buddy. But we're not convinced of any of this.
Yeah. Real quick, let me knock out some more announcements. Friends, if you shop on Amazon, you can support the ACA at no cost to you. Please visit tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA. I think also tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA. And designate the Atheist Community of Austin as your selected charity. And Amazon will donate a portion of their profit directly to the ACA. Also, we now have a channel that houses all of the shows on the ACA in audio podcast form. Visit tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. There you can listen to all the latest shows from the Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, Secular Sexuality, the Nonprofits, and others on one channel. Lastly, we have 3 Facebook groups that are run by fans, for fans that you can interact with. The first is the Atheist Experience fan group at tiny.cc/FBAXP. There's also the Atheist Experience private fan group where you can go behind the velvet rope and interact with others without having those interactions appear on your public feed. Highly exclusive private fan group, tiny.cc/FBAXPPR. We also have a new group, the Atheist Experience fan group, Atheist versus Theist Debates, where you can try out some of your arguments on theists and atheists alike. You can find that at tiny.cc/AXP fan debates. All those shows, those shows that you can find here on the YouTubes, you can find them in the audio podcast form as well. It can be hard to get them all, fit them all into your week. And it's easy to miss a thing or two. If you missed anything from the last week's ACA content, here's a little sampler of some of what you might have missed.
Thanks for coming in and joining us, and I guess kind of helping us shake off the rust. It's been like a 3-year dry spell. So if I'm a little bit awkward, don't. I promise this never happens.
Just kidding, folks. I'm not Bob Ross or Rob Koss or whatever. I'm objectively dead. I've been in costume this entire time. I fooled you guys. Can you believe it? I know.
How could you?
We will pray, we will burn, we will celebrate Jesus, and push back the forces of darkness on the year's most evil night. We are children of the light, and we will not tolerate darkness. He's gone full on super Christian for this one, hasn't he? It's amazing.
If something was to hit a bunch of people on their brain and they got aphasia, it would make sense that they were speaking to each other.
Is this the Three Stooges argument for the existence of God? When you're having the conversation with somebody about agnosticism, that you're on the same page. Right. I don't see what's so hard about it. Don't get hung up on words, Patrick.
Look, you're right. I just...
Yeah, I know.
I like...
All right, we've got some Mo. We got Mo calls to get to.
Oh, first, so many.
Real quick, if you can arrange, I'm talking to you. Yeah, you. If you can arrange to be in the Austin area between November 17th and 20th, please consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, and the Atheist Experience. Doors open at 6 p.m. on Thursday and Friday and noon on Sunday. Parking is wherever you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. Don't break the law. If you can't make it there this month, we will continue to broadcast live from the library the last week of each month. So keep watching the shows and our website, atheist-community.org, for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. Dave, do you see the call screening list? Do you have any preferences?
I do. Let's talk to John.
Boom.
From California.
John says the Bible is smarter than mankind psychologically and scientifically. John, help us out. What's up?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
sure can. Hey, John.
You can't come up with a good... Okay, thanks. You cannot come up with a good enough excuse here and now to not be able to on Judgment Day why God should not throw you into hell for all eternity. If you say you did not want to be born, God is going to say you should have been born again. That means become a Christian, so that's not going to work. And now try to think of another excuse.
Well, wait a minute. How the hell do you know what God's going to say?
What? Well, another excuse why we shouldn't be...
Because I know the Bible.
Yeah, John, are you saying you're saying that we should have an excuse for why God shouldn't throw us into hell?
You can't. Yeah. Well, if there is no excuse, maybe you better read something that's smarter than you.
Well, because I don't believe I should suffer an infinite eternal torment for a finite mistake that I make as a human being. What deity Why would God need to torment me forever? For what could I've possibly done to deserve that?
Yeah.
Well, eternity could be like past, present, future, all at the same time. Like when you can dream at times of past events or past people that are not alive anymore in the same dream. Past, present, future, all in the same dream. So dreaming is kind of a glimpse of what eternity may be like. However, if you say, God, why did you create any of this? We wouldn't have to go to hell if you did.
Wait. You're not answering Dave's question.
I didn't ask
Dave,
you that.
Dave didn't ask any of this shit.
Yeah.
Dave asked you, what did he do to deserve eternal punishment?
Okay, before we go there, you guys cannot out-psychologize the Bible. Okay, so you admit you
Just
can't do it.
answer my
the
fucking question. John, answer
What did
my
Dave do?
question. What
Yeah,
did
what
I
did Dave
do? What could I possibly have done in this short life of mine to deserve eternal punishment?
But I'll
Answer
explain
that question, or we're going to drop your ass. Huh?
Hey, don't pansy out now. I was the one that asked the question first, right? That's the call-in show. So I just to verify that first question. All right. Why should you spend eternity in hell? Sinning over and over against eternal God, and having sins not washed away from you.
What does that have to do with?
I haven't
deserving
sinned
eternal
against an
punishment?
eternal God. Why can't God just forgive me if I say I'm sorry?
Yeah.
He can through the blood of Jesus Christ in this lifetime. So the Holy Spirit.
Why did he have to murder? Why did he have to murder his son, which is himself, in order to get me off the hook? And basically, I'm going to say again, what could I have possibly done? I haven't not murdered anyone. I've never raped anyone. I've never tortured anyone. I've never done anything that would be worthy of eternal torment in a burning flame.
Well, he died on the cross for all of your sins. If you sinned once, you need to be forgiven. God is perfect. See, God's perfect in order to go to heaven. That's why he prophesied in Genesis 3 that he was.
You're just repeating talking points that you've heard.
John, let me ask you something, because I just want to kind of read the room here. So like recently I watched that like Jeffrey Dahmer show that was streaming, that was super popular. And at the tail end of Dahmer's life, he very publicly accepted Jesus, said he was very sorry for what he'd done. He was baptized. So let me give you two examples of people. Right. So you got Dave over here, who is a cool dude, doesn't hurt people, was involved in ministry for a long time, is as nice and moral and ethical a guy as you could ever hope to meet. And then you got Dahmer. So Dave doesn't believe in Jesus, but Jeffrey Dahmer said he did. Who on your theology is more likely to be punished forever, and who's going to spend eternity in paradise?
If you're sitting on the fence as a good moral person and saying I don't need Jesus, I'm not that bad of a sinner, then you can't be on the fence. You're either
that's not. Hang on, I'm muting you because it sounds like maybe there's the wires got crossed. All I was asking you is, we got between Jeffrey Dahmer and Dave, who's more likely to sort of be on God's good side at this moment?
Are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, Dahmer did get forgiveness. It looks like he may have been repentant. The chaplain that pastored him, whatever, it looks like he was. Dave, as far as not doing anything that bad, would be more closer to the kingdom of God, but he's not in the kingdom of God yet. You gotta go through Jesus.
So I just want to point out. So on your theology, which to be fair sounds totally biblical, Dave, being a good dude, has nothing to do with whether he's going to be in heaven or tortured forever. Meanwhile, the guy who used to abduct and torture and kill people, that guy, totally good at this point, right?
Jesus came to wipe away all sin, all sins of a believer's life. Once somebody becomes a believer, they must go and sin no more. So God will help us with that, because we have hangups when we come to Christ. We have addiction problems, and he'll help us come out of that. And so he says 5 times in the New Testament, go be perfect as I'm perfect, etc. Go be holy as I'm holy. Go and sin no more. Go and sin no more, or something worse will happen.
Okay, we know all the Bible talking points. We know all that. But you're dodging the question, so I'm going to put it to you bluntly. According to your theology, I'm going to be burning in hell, and Jeffrey Dahmer is going to be dancing with Jesus in heaven. Is that correct? Yes or
Your
no?
thought life is not. I bet your thought life is not pure.
Just answer.
Yes or no?
He's asking
yes
just
or
yes
no?
or no. Just yes or no.
Yes or no?
No, it's
Am
not.
I burning in hell and Jeffrey Dahmer's dancing with Jesus in heaven?
Right?
Do you look at porn? Do you do anything sinful?
That is fucking irrelevant.
Just answer the question. Just answer the question.
Do you do anything sinful, Dave? No, Dave.
That is irrelevant.
He doesn't want to go to.
I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe that Jesus died for my sins. I used to be a Christian for 37 years. I used to be a preacher, but I've come to the conclusion that God's not real and that I was wrong. I do not believe that Jesus died for my sins, and I will not confess him as my Lord and Savior. Therefore, according to your theology, I'm going to burn in hell, right? And Dahmer, because he repented at the end of his life, listen, is going to be in heaven. Is that true or not? Yes or no?
According to my theology, you cannot out-psychologize the Bible. See, the Bible's smarter than you.
Is that true? Yes or no?
That doesn't have
yes
anything
or
to
no?
do with what he asked. So
you guys
answer the question.
You're not
John.
Jesus said.
John. I don't care what Jesus said. I know all that shit. Answer the question. Is it true, according to your theology, I'm going to hell and Dahmer's going to heaven? Is that true? Yes or
Dave,
no?
do you still sin?
Is that true? Yes or no? Is that true?
Yes
or no?
This isn't hard, John.
If you don't answer the question, we're going to drop your ass.
John, this isn't hard. Like,
if you don't answer the question, we're going to drop
the
you.
question, and then we'll happily move on to this other stuff you're talking about. I got a
yes
whole
or
question
no?
I want to ask you.
Yes or no?
Yeah, I already answered some of that. But you're not 100% true. You're not 100% being truthful about your sin. I said you still sin.
John,
you didn't answer the question.
We're not talking about my sins.
Just do us a favor. He asked you the question. He's asking you just to say yes or no, just to answer it, and then we'll move on. All right? This isn't hard.
Am I going to hell and Dahmer's going to heaven?
And until you get the forgiveness of sins, you're going to hell. He's going to heaven.
There we go.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to, now I just before we
and
keep
I've heard
going,
hell is going to be a lot more fun.
Before,
the party's happening in hell, man. You should go to hell with us, John.
So, John, you start at the start of this call. You talked about God said, and you've said Jesus said a few times. So it sounds like you are convinced that the Bible contains things that were said by God and or Jesus. Why do you think that?
What do I think they said by both? They're both one and the same. And when Jesus came to earth, he left his deity in heaven, Philippians 2, but he operated in the fullness of the Holy Spirit.
Well, no, right. No. So maybe you don't understand what I'm asking you. Hang on. Maybe you don't understand what I'm asking you, because what I'm asking you is, because like I can reach over. Hang on, let me grab it. This is I've got a Quran in my hands right now. And I talk to people who will tell me God said, and then they'll point to stuff that's in this book. You're saying God said stuff that's in a different book. The Mormons will tell me they got a book. You know, the Hindus have books. The Zoroastrians and Scientologists. God, there's a lot of books out there, man. How do you know that yours is the God book?
Good question. Because of zero margin of deviation by 40 writers shows that God wrote the Bible. The Quran has 200 contradictions in it. 7 verses that can do.
There's zero deviation in the Bible?
Deviation, right. And what the last caller was trying to say was he was right, is that Paul wrote Romans and quotes 73 times, 73 different verses from the Old Testament, and it does not contradict those 73 verses where he quotes from, nor Romans itself, nor any of the other New Testament verses. So the Bible's congruent all the way through.
John.
Let's just
John. John, how many women went to go visit the tomb where, on Easter morning after Jesus was crucified?
3, I think, in Luke, right? And I don't know other than that.
You don't know other than that?
No.
Do you know that all 4 Gospels have a different version of the resurrection story? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, they have 4 different viewpoints. They don't contradict each other, though.
Oh,
well,
yes,
wait a
they
minute.
do.
So
yeah, they do.
If Matthew says it's like Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, and then Mark says you got Mary and Mary, mother of Jesus, and like Salome, and then Luke, you got Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of Jesus, and like in John, it's like only Mary Magdalene. What's the deal?
You have 4 different viewpoints. Like you see, 4 people see a car wreck or a crime committed.
Yeah.
And
Right,
so they
like
have
the car
4
wreck
different
thing.
angles, or they saw it at 7 different times. But they don't. The bottom line is they don't contradict each other.
Were the disciples told to go to Galilee? Right? When you remember, like when Jesus appears to the disciples, were the disciples told to go to Galilee? Or were they told to stay in Jerusalem?
And he said go to Jerusalem after he resurrected, but
did he?
To wait for power from on high. But this is after he came back. After he came back from the dead. So
No. I'm talking about in the resurrection story.
Yeah, nobody would have been thrown in jail one time or hit it in the face for a lie. So they had to have seen it.
Did the disciples believe the reports from the women who were at the grave? Did they believe them, or did they not believe them?
Peter did not believe. No, in the book of Luke, he didn't believe that, and so they didn't believe it at first. They thought, okay, what's going on?
But in Matthew, they believe, right? In Matthew, they believe it, and they go quickly to Galilee. Isn't that what happens?
I'm not sure on Matthew, but what's your point?
By the way, when the women went to the tomb, did they see an angel who rolled away the stone and sat on it? Did they see a young guy sitting at the side of the tomb? Did they see 2 men in shining garments? Did they see nothing but the stone was not there?
All 3. So it could have been.
It was both. It was both 2 men and 1 man.
How can it be all 3? How can all of that be true? They contradict each other.
Because
John.
Because they didn't arrive at the same. They didn't arrive at the same time. It's like seeing a car accident. People don't
Oh
see
my
it at the same
God.
time.
Or they didn't arrive at the same time.
Hey,
you don't know that.
It doesn't
You just pulled that right out of your ass. Look, the point is, like, and it's obvious, is that the stories are different depending on which book you read. Obviously,
that's 4 different viewpoints, but they don't contradict all throughout those books. They don't contradict.
They obviously and definitely do contradict.
You've,
and that's what
you've
I've
been
pointing
told
out
that, John. You've got a lot of talking points. You repeat a lot of things you've been told, but you haven't done your own research.
Read the stories.
The Bible's not hagiographic. It doesn't lift up its people that it talks about higher than what they are. It doesn't say this guy was supremely.
I don't know what that means. I don't know why you're saying that.
This doesn't have anything to do with whether there's contradictions in the story.
Saying,
there's a bunch of contradictions in the Easter story, and honestly, I love bringing it up because of that thing I was talking about earlier. Because Paul says the resurrection's the most important claim in all of Scripture, and they can't get it right. You got 4 different stories. You got all different details. It's, they can't even get how many disciples Jesus first appeared to on the same page. Was it all of them? Was it 2? Was it 10? Was Thomas with them or not? It depends on which story you read. And if you want to act,
wait, they're freer in the prison than they were on the outside after they're born again. Lots of convicts.
What the hell does that have to do with anything that I just said?
You've heard a lot of stuff.
Now
John.
you're just pulling stuff. Now you're just
repeating stuff you've been told. You've been told a lot of stuff by preachers. You haven't done your own research. I encourage you to do your own research. That's what I did. That's what I did, and it led me out of the faith.
Hey, you don't have no excuse on Judgment Day. You've been told you cannot come up with a good enough excuse.
I'm not worried about Judgment Day. There is no Judgment Day.
The Bible's still trapped. The Bible's still trapped.
Give me any evidence that Judgment Day is gonna happen.
You think we're afraid of Judgment Day, John? Seriously?
You might as well be telling me that Santa's gonna leave coal in my stocking, dude. There's no evidence.
Here's the evidence. Anytime you sin, the bigger the sin, the more conviction from the conscience happens.
That's not evidence. Sin is a religious word. And sin is not even a thing.
Thank you.
Sin is a religious word. It's a religious construct that's made up. Sin is not even a thing outside of religion.
Sin is the disease that religions diagnose you with so they can sell a made-up disease so they can sell you made-up cures.
Let's go to the science question. We got the entropy, energy, matter.
No, we're not going to the science. No, we're not going to science with you, John. We are not going to science with you.
But I'm going to tell you what, I'm dropping you out, but you should play the fun game where you sit. I used to have one of these. I don't know if you ever had one of these, Dave. One of the side-by-side Bibles.
Oh, yeah.
It was King James,
parallel Bibles.
Parallel Bible, exactly.
Bibles,
It was
yeah.
a King James, an Amplified Bible, a New American Standard, and a New International Version, all next to each other. And you can read them. You can see how
Oh, yeah.
different things
And
line up.
when I was deconstructing, that was what I did. I literally wrote out the resurrection story side by side on the yellow legal pad. And I looked at that and I said, oh, my God, we got a problem here. Because that was the central story, as you said earlier.
It's supposed to be the whole thing.
Yep. Everything hinges on that.
All right, we got more good calls to get to. Let me get the
Mhm.
last announcements done so we can do that. Okay, we have a brand new store. Visit tiny.cc/merchaca to get your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, and check out brand new items like beanies, cell phone cases, and tote bags. We now offer a feature, a special, a limited edition item each month. So check out the store and the stores of all the other shows. Right below the chat, you'll notice there's a donate now box. Donations made there mean that the ACA will get 100% of the proceeds. YouTube does not take a cut, and that is arguably the best way to support the channel. Finally, we want to send a big thank you out to the crew who put the show together every week. Can we get the crew cam up so that people can see the wonderful people that we're talking about? Here we go. Oh yeah, they keep coming. There we go.
Look at that crew. Beautiful
We freaking
crew.
love the crew. We love them. All right, let's
talk to
keep
Diana.
this thing-
She's been there a while.
Diana wants. Oh yeah,
Number
there
3.
we go. Let's do it. Diana, in California, how are you? You want to talk about love bombing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've noticed that psychologists will refer to people who do love bombing. They buy you a lot of gifts to win over your affection. And religion does this a lot, especially with children when they're younger. In order to get, and part of the deal is that they have to participate in the religious activities to get these gifts. And this happens year after year after year, so that children are now pre-programmed that year after year, at this particular day, on this particular religious day, that particular religious day, you should be expecting gifts, candy, money, what have you. And they're pre-programmed as children. Then when you get the government involved and businesses involved with advertising and businesses say, hey, look, this religion is going to do this year after year after year after year. Now we're going to advertise because we want to get in on that money. If these people are going to be going out there year after year after year and buying these gifts, we're getting in on it. So they're not necessarily supporting the religion. They're making money off of it. So they're not going to, rebuff saying, oh, let's change our advertising during this time of the year to correlate with this religion because it'll bring people in, possibly, to buy our product. And we make money on it. And if you get the government in on it, with government officials promoting their particular religion, that's almost like having, someone validate their religion. Oh, look, the government's involved with this religion. That must mean that the religion is true, or it's a validation. And in personal relationships, that's what I was saying about love bombing. In personal relationships, you can see this happen sometimes at the beginning of a relationship. Someone might continuously buy someone gifts, as we call it, showering with gifts for their, affection. And I find that very wrong because children are being told year after year until they realize that they're the one buying the gifts, that these people are going to give them gifts.
It's emotionally it's emotionally manipulative, the whole thing. This idea that, first of all, if we're just talking about Christianity, for example, diagnosing you with sin and then offering you this forgiveness, and with the forgiveness comes a perfect supernatural love. It's a better love than anything you could ever hope to experience within a human being, and it'll never go away no matter what you do. It's perfect at the low cost of your rational faculties.
Your attendance and your time.
Yeah, right.
No, I think what I thought of about love bombing, if you want to experience ultimate love bombing, just visit a church next Sunday And if you go with children or young people, then the program directors swoop in. They take the kids to kids church. The young people, the teens, go to youth group, and you get swamped by the greeters. That's the hot term in the evangelical world. The greeters, they're trained
Not to be confused with Walmart greeters. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same. Yeah, they want to sell you their product, and so I've often thought about just visiting a few churches in the area just to see what they do, and just drop in a little hint, when they say, ask me if I'm visiting. Yeah, I'm an atheist. I just kind of see what's going on, just to watch their heads turn around like The Exorcist. But they just get him
out of here. He's going to talk to the kids.
Yeah, they just want to. They want to suck you in, and the greeters are trained to swoop in there and get you a visitor's card and take you to the little coffee afterwards where you can meet the staff. And I was on those staffs. I know how the whole system works, but it's all love bombing, because on the back side of that, if you get into that church, when you leave, crickets.
Yeah,
crickets. And so it's all about.
They also want donations.
Yeah, they want the tie. They want your attendance.
Land donation.
Yeah.
Anything they can sell, donate them your car, they'll sell it for money.
We could spend all day criticizing, the emotionally manipulative tactics.
I don't understand, because being an atheist, I would rather give someone a gift because I want to give them a gift without the hook and ladder, so to speak, that it's religious.
That's why the atheist community has a hard time raising money. We don't have that guilt trip of God judging you if you don't give.
How would that go? Yeah, donate or else. Who said? I don't know. We did, or what? I don't know. Please. That's There's no pitch. There's no hook. Diane, I'm going to drop you out because
thanks for calling, Diane.
Thank you. Appreciate the conversation.
We hear you, girl.
Thanks.
Bye
bye. All right. This should be a quick one. Jamie in Texas has it sounds like a pretty quick and direct question. Jamie, what was it you wanted to ask?
So talking about books, talking about all kinds of books, Quran, Bible, but also stuff like Mein Kampf, the Anarchist Cookbook. Should any book be banned? Do we draw a line somewhere? And if so, where?
I think no. That's just my opinion. I think when you start banning, first of all, you got to ask yourself who's doing the banning and why. What's the agenda behind the banning? You're trying to cut off people's the flow of information, and when you start doing that, that's a problematic situation. That's kind of a slippery slope, if you ask me. That's my opinion. Kenneth?
Yeah, no, I'm on the same boat. I think that. I think that the good ideas hopefully rise to the top. The bad ideas, get ignored. But we have to be able to engage with the ideas to evaluate whether they're bad or not. I don't think anybody should be forced to read any books. If ban it from your own personal library if you don't want to read it. But I think that.
What do you think, Jamie?
So here's specifically why I brought up the Anarchist Cookbook as an example, in contrast to something like the Bible. Lots of bad things have been done in the name of the Bible, and there's a lot of heinous stuff in there, but it's all a bit woolly. The Anarchist Cookbook is literally here's how to make napalm, here's how to build a bomb, like practical, actionable, very dangerous stuff. And I'm on your guys' wavelength with this. I don't think they should be banned, but potentially regulated somehow. Maybe you have to pass a test. I don't know. That's a slippery slope.
Well, I think exposed is the better word. I'm thinking if as a free thinker now, I was a Christian, a fundamentalist when I was raising my kids, and I pretty much monitored things like that, and that was back before the internet, so that I could control the flow of information. You can't now. You've got the whole world at your fingertips with a smartphone now, and the kids have that. So you can ban all the books you want, but they can still get the information on the internet, and a lot worse. I think the better solution is to monitor it, expose it, I would invite, if my kids wanted to read Mein Kampf or Anarchist Cookbook, I would say, read on. Let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion about what you read there. And that's, I think, the better approach for anyone.
Yeah. I'd agree. I agree. Like, prohibition never really works. I think proper education is better, and that goes for information, inebriants. There's a whole discussion about firearms that is different, but also in the same ballpark. But let's keep it to this. Yeah, educate and put a warning in front. Like, this is dangerous information, and if you imply it, if you use it, you will get in serious trouble. So don't.
Sure. I mean, like, my sort of hippie humanist brain goes to a place of being like, well, you know, if we're sufficiently caring for people in our society who have mental health issues, if we destigmatize all the, you know, like the idea of getting mental health care, you know, we can mitigate a lot of the risks of people reading something toxic and going and doing toxic things just by, you know, treating them as our neighbors and fellow human beings and making sure that they have what they need, so that they recognize why these toxic ideas aren't appealing in the first place. So I think that our society needs to be doing the foundational work of humanism, of caring for our fellow man. And by doing that, you know, let the chips fall where they may with respect to, you know, some nut writing about his theories, you know. You know, you start reading somebody's manifesto and you're like, what the fuck is this? And you just toss it because it's like, you don't need it, you know. We should be trying to make it so that people don't need it, is my attitude.
I will take no more of your time other than to say secularist humanism and robust social safety nets for the win. Keep going, guys. You're doing a great job.
Thanks,
Have a good one.
Jamie.
Take care. All right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Amanual.
I think I agree.
All right. All right. Let's do. I just saw some other stuff in the queue and. All right. Amanual says you wanted to talk about the New Testament apostles being credible.
Yeah, first of all, I want to talk a little bit, you know, someone called a little earlier and I was like listening to the conversation and I want to clarify that I have read the New Testament too many times in different versions. I've also read the Old Testament. I've read a lot of commentaries and studied the Bible. So I'm not like speaking out of ignorance. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I'm talking about.
Have you read the Quran?
No. I have never read other books, but
you haven't read the Book of Mormon?
Other books. I've read the Book of Mormon. Yeah. So,
you don't include that as a testament?
No. I've read Joseph Smith, particularly. Book of Mormon had like 3 parts. I read like Joseph Smith vision.
Okay.
So
I was wondering where you draw the line.
Well,
you know, when you start talking about, I read the old stuff, I read the new stuff, and I was like,
well,
let's
get to your question or your comment. What are you calling about? How can we help you?
I read Joseph Smith vision, but it's a little bit. I'm sorry to say this, but it's a little bit offensive, you know, because I'm
let's not talk about it. Well, let's talk about the New Testament apostles.
I find the Bible offensive, but nonetheless, let's go to your question here. What is the New Testament apostles are credible? Talk to us about that.
By the way, Dave Warnock.
Yes,
that was like my favorite reverend name. And I was like, when they told me that you're talking to Dave Warnock, I was like, what?
All right.
I was a reverend, but I don't know. I don't know what that means. But yeah.
So about them New Testament apostles.
Preacher.
Yeah, let's talk about New Testament apostles.
Okay, so I was raised in a Pentecostal Christianity. If you're very familiar with it, so I got a little bit curious at the age of like 14 or 15. So I got a little bit skeptical, and I turned away from like the whole concept of Christianity because I thought that this has to be like made up, right? So you know, at the age of 15. I gave myself to Christ, and at the age of 16, I became like a bondservant of Jesus Christ, right? So Let me talk about the New Testament. So the New Testament was actually written 75% by Apostle Paul. So
was it?
Okay, well, let's go with that. What's your point?
All right.
So 75% of the New Testament, most of the epistles and most of like the book of Acts was recorded by narration of Paul. So
yeah,
you see
we're aware of all that.
Mark,
Yeah.
but the Gospel of Mark was not written by Mark. It was actually the source or the author of the book of Mark is Peter, Apostle Peter, according to history. So what I want
well,
wait a minute.
No,
Wait,
I'm
did
sorry. What? Where did you get that?
Oh, I actually got it from a commentary, a New Testament commentary, that it was a narration from Peter that have lived in the first century. So Peter was like a Christian that lived in the first century. Is one of the
just to recap, because I want to make sure that I'm not hearing things. Is the claim that Peter narrated Mark? Was that what he said?
Yeah, what I wanted to say was he can't write because he was illiterate, according to Acts 4. So he was illiterate. So he since he can't write and he doesn't have the capacity to use language, he just told to Mark, and Mark actually wrote it down. That's how the book of Mark actually was written.
Never
Mark
heard of that. But
is the
that's
first
okay.
book of the New Testament according to history. It's not even the second book.
We know these things. I don't know if you realize this, but you're talking to a couple of guys who used to be Christians and know the Bible very well. I used to preach it. So
what kind of Christian, by the way? Can I know?
Pentecostals,
ones.
spoken tongues, Pentecostal, believed in miracles, all that. Let's get to your point. Rather than a Bible commentary, let's get to your point because we're about to run out of time.
Yeah. So, okay. So what I would say is you're actually saved, but you lost your salvation according to Hebrews 5.
This is not about me.
To be taken away.
Forget about
this. Is not about me.
You're here to talk about what you believe and why. So there's the claim on the table is the New Testament apostles are credible. So let's deal with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the New Testament apostles were actually, some of them were actually torn apart, and the way that they died was a very horrific death. They were like
according to legend.
Real quick, does hang on. Before you keep going, does how someone died have anything to do with whether anything they ever said ever in their life was or was not true?
Yes, because if they actually, you don't die like that for a lie. You know what I'm saying? It's like.
Okay, let me ask you this, Emmanuel,
Yeah.
just really quick. You know what happened on 9/11 in New York City, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened in New York City?
What happened?
Bombs.
No, what happened?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
What happened on 9/11 in New York City? What happened specifically?
I don't actually remember what happened.
Oh, my Jesus. Okay. Let me tell you what happened.
American, just so you know, that's why I don't.
Okay.
Know. Okay.
Well, it's a pretty big worldwide event. Let's just say that. Let me tell you what happened. A bunch of guys who believed that America and Christianity were apostates and godless commandeered some airplanes and drove them into buildings in New York City, killing thousands of people and themselves.
Yeah.
They killed themselves because they believed that their version of religion was the only one that was accurate. Now, are they credible because they died for what they believed in?
Can't be credible because just because they are zealous to it doesn't mean it's necessarily true.
Then why do you claim that how the apostles died? Why do you claim that how the apostles died was relevant?
No. I'm just telling you because historically Christianity was banned in Rome. So it was illegal to be a Christian.
It's irrelevant.
Stop. We're talking about the credibility of the people who you think wrote the New Testament. Okay. So you've got some apostles. Some apostles died horrible deaths. Some apostles,
according to legend,
died. Yeah. So, you've got these stories about apostles dying horrible deaths. So
Yeah.
So what?
I've heard this claim
what?
before, Emmanuel, that no one dies for a lie. I've
Yeah.
heard that over and over again, that somehow because they died as martyrs, that somehow their truth was relevant. So these guys who suicided themselves into the Twin Towers in New York City did the same thing. Why is that different?
Oh, it's different because those guys who actually blew up those stuff are not witnesses. They just read a book. They claim that was actually true.
Okay.
You
You're
know what I'm saying?
contradicting.
These are actually
You're contradicting yourself. You're contradicting yourself. You made the claim that the way the apostles died gave them credibility, and I'm challenging that. And then you're shifting to another part of the story.
Yeah,
that's not being intellectually honest.
Yeah. Two of those, I might have had a contradiction. I'm sorry, I didn't actually notice. So I'm sorry if I have contradicted. But what I wanted to say was the apostles are actually eyewitnesses. There are not people who actually read. Okay, can I finish my point? So they're not actually people who read a book.
Your point is
and actually
Emmanuel. Your point is a very obvious one. So I'm going to try to help you out. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a quick yes or no question. So is the idea here that because the apostles were eyewitnesses to Jesus,
actually Paul wasn't, so
that makes the gospels reliable? Is that the claim?
Yes.
That eyewitness testimony is reliable.
Yeah, because what do you do at the court? One of the things that you do at the court.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so happy you brought that up.
Stepped right into your trap,
Emmanuel. So there's two big problems with what you're saying. One is that there is zero reason, even some guy saying so, there's zero reason to think that the apostles wrote the gospels. And as Dave pointed out, Paul was not an eyewitness to any of the events that are described in the Gospels. Paul was a guy who saw a vision about Jesus.
While on shrooms.
Who knows what the hell was going on with that guy? You brought up court, though. You brought up court, Emmanuel. So
big mistake.
There's this group called the Innocence Project, and I would urge you to look them up and other organizations like them. They're organizations that what they do is they go around and they exonerate people who have previously been convicted of crimes. There are people who are sitting in prison right now who have been convicted of crimes that they did not commit. There are people who get executed even for crimes they did not commit. So what the Innocence Project and other groups like it, what they do is they get evidence that shows that a person did not commit a crime that they were convicted of. And my question to you, Emmanuel, is what is the number one type of evidence that gets overturned leading to a vacated conviction?
I don't know the answer to it.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess.
And by a wide ass margin.
Eyewitness testimony.
It is eyewitness testimony.
Eyewitness testimony. I have the answer.
Eyewitness testimony is the number one type of evidence that gets overturned in wrongful conviction cases, because people are often wrong about shit that they see.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually get your point. I actually agree, because what you're saying right now is testimony is not a valid thing. Most of the time, it's very erroneous. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it may or may not be, but eyewitness testimony is often
it depends
is
on
often
the person
wrong.
is honest or not.
No, it does not depend on if the person is honest or not.
They can just be mistaken.
Yeah, most of the time, these people, like, it's not that they're like, Jim committed the crime, I saw him do it, because they're lying. They sincerely think that, and it's a serious thing to sit there in court and testify that someone committed a crime, knowing they're going to get locked up or potentially executed for what you're saying they did. That's a serious thing.
Okay.
And people will be like, no, I know what I saw. I know what I saw. And they're wrong. It happens all the time.
Yeah. Hey, man,
and let's not forget. Let's not forget.
No. Because in the previous call, you made a lot of errors when you was talking to that guy that called from California. You made a lot of theological errors. I don't know where you got your doctrine from. Like
Like what?
seriously. I don't know
What errors?
What
like,
theological
for
error?
example, you just said there was a guy that has killed a lot of people, but he has received forgiveness. So he is in heaven, and I am in hell. How is that fair? You are saying, but according to the New Testament, you both are going to be in hell, because 1 Corinthians 5:19 actually said that murderers don't go to heaven. It's actually there are a lot of things that are unforgivable.
Your theology conflicts with the previous caller's theology, and that is something that I saw all throughout my Christian life. Is the Christians
because he
can't
has
even
a different
no.
denomination.
Let me talk. Yeah, because you're right and he's wrong. He's got a different theology, and yours is right and his is wrong. He would say that his is right and yours is wrong.
And
so you Christians can't even
book.
you're getting it from the same source. You Christians can't even get your story straight. You can't even agree on what the gospel actually is. It's astounding to me.
This kind of people don't go to heaven. I don't know where you got the theology that he is in heaven. When
he read the same book you did.
Is not in
He read
heaven.
the same book you did. But hang on, I'm just going to mute you because Emmanuel, I just want to draw attention to what you've done here. We were talking about the credibility of the apostles, and you and I was decimating the idea that eyewitness testimony was the reliable thing. In addition, we don't have eyewitness testimony. So I pointed out we don't have it, and even if we did, it's not necessarily reliable. And your response to that was to be like, well, what about all this other shit? I just want to bring us back. Do you recognize that now that what you were suggesting about the credibility of the apostles was, bullshit?
Yeah, by the way, I actually agree to your point that eyewitness is not a very good evidence. You know what I'm saying? It's like
So you just jump to the next thing.
Yeah.
In other words, you make that as a point, and then when that's disproven, you jump to the next thing.
Yeah, because we make mistakes, and it's actually a very common thing.
You're right.
You actually,
But, okay, so
this
might be the only. We maybe have time for just one last thing. So my question is this. So you were talking about the apostles being credible. I kind of pointed out that they're not, and that we don't really have good reasons to believe the stuff that's in the New Testament. We don't have really good sources. It all seems to be kind of made up. And then you started quoting from 1 Corinthians. Why?
Okay. I'm sorry. What's the question, by the way? That's actually
don't worry about it, man. We're out of time anyway.
Yeah,
have
we're out of time.
a great rest of your day, and
thanks for calling.
And that'll be it. Dave, do you want to take this last one, or are we?
I think we're done. I think we're done too. I don't want to even go down that road there. I don't know what that even means.
Yeah, forget about it. So, okay, here we go.
My voice is gone anyway.
I hear you. Look, everybody watching, everybody hanging out in the chat, mods, crew, everybody involved, everyone listening to this in the future. Thank you for being here today, everybody. Hey, visit our website, atheist-community.org. And check out what's going on over there for the latest on what's been happening. Feel free to reach out. Contact us at tv@atheist-community.org. It has been great being here with you today, Dave.
Yeah, man.
I'm going to point out, I'm going to miss being on AXP. This is for the foreseeable future going to be my last time sitting in this spot because my wife and I are about to have a bebe, and I'm back to focus on family stuff.
Good for you.
I'm gonna take a minute. Everyone, I see all the gossip. I see all the people on the forums, on the Twitter talking about the ACA. I'm gonna expose the ACA right here, right now. It's an outstanding group of people. I feel very fortunate getting to hang out with all of y'all. Can we see the crew cam one more time? Speaking of extraordinary people, here we go. Awesome. It's been a hell of a show. Dave,
I'll see you tomorrow night. We got you co-hosting with me tomorrow night. We're going to the subject of the show is why do we keep arguing with Christians?
Oh, well, there we go. Well, hey, in the meantime, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.